Hey everyone, and welcome to Chef AJ Live. I'm your host, Chef AJ, and this is where I introduce you to amazing people like you who are doing great things in the world that I think you should know about. My guest today is Larry Tadlock. He is a vegan comedian from Texas, and he's been vegan almost as long as I am, a little bit, 10 years to catch up, 36 years, no small feat. Please welcome him to the show. It's nice to meet you, Larry.
Yeah, nice to meet you finally in person.
Well,
Yeah.
wait, how do you know me? Because you wrote in to be on the show, and I'm sorry it's taken me so long. I just cannot believe how many people want to be on the show. I'm so grateful, and how many people want to return. So I'm doing my best in 2024 to get everybody on the chance. So, do you watch the show? How did you come to want to
Yeah, well,
be
I've
on?
watched the show since you started it during back in COVID. And, a certain amount of the whole food plant-based people, they're really trouble. They need a lot of work.
Yeah.
The ones that make the comments. So my interaction with you would probably be, well, what about no nuts, no fruit? Can I heat it? So yeah, because I grew up on a lot of antibiotics, I have a kind of autoimmune gut thing. So I'm the 1% that does whole food plant-based, but I still struggle.
Well,
And so that's how you know me, because I probably made a comment or two.
there's still more, and again, here's the thing, there's this thing, I think it's Dr. Goldhammer who said, vegans get headaches from wearing their halos too tight. Vegans get sick. No matter how pristine your diet is, there's something called genetics that's going to affect. I mean, vegans even get cancer. And then the people that aren't vegan beat us up saying, well, see, it's because of your diet. No, our diet probably saved us from having much worse conditions and having them soon. And so I'm curious as to your story about when you went vegan, or, I use vegan or plant-based because some people don't like the word vegan. I do. I'm proud. I mean, I'm whole food. I'm not plant-based. I'm plant exclusive, but tell us your origin story, if you will.
Yeah, and I'm also not I'm not triggered by the word vegan. It's specific. So it's a good one. But yeah, when I was 20, so I had a dachshund. And I was walking my dog, and the dog went off the leash and went to attack a duck. And I just saw the look on the face of the duck and just the terror in the eyes. And that was it. I just went vegetarian. And that was a pretty big deal for me because, I came from, my grandfather was a cattle rancher in Texas. My great grandfather founded the Fort Worth stockyards, and I pretty much ate meat or some animal products at every meal up until that point. I was trying to think what wasn't. All I could come up with was watermelon in the heat of the summer. Uh,
How old
but
were you when you had this epiphany?
I was 20, and I had been waiting tables at a place that served duck. And I mean, that was already, I was out in California and Palo Alto. And, in Texas, we had pork, beef, chicken, and fish sticks. That's the meat that we had. So I didn't even know about eating duck. But even from a young age, I had a weird feeling about eating our cows. Um, my grandfather took us all to like this big steakhouse in downtown Fort Worth, and I ordered fried shrimp. And he said, boy, I'm going to disinherit you. So somebody said, you should be vegetarian. I'm like, how can I afford it? Sounds expensive, but
Did he disinherit you?
no, not at all. Not at all. Not at all. And, years later, I don't think there was an inheritance, uh, but it was a funny comment. And so I had a lot of health issues as a kid. I had pneumonia 6 times for 6 weeks in the hospital, and pretty much lived on antibiotics all winter long. I would, have bronchitis and health issues. And um, so, and in fact, I remember being in the hospital and my dad saying, you know, who sold you on the idea of being sick and tired all the time? And I was like, well, it's the hot fudge sundaes. They give you hot fudge sundaes right there in the hospital. So what better to, put you over the edge toward death and give you a, mucus filled hot fudge sundae? How about some heroin or a cigarette, while we're at it? So, So that was my background. So I went vegetarian, but back then in the late 80s, the idea was, well, you needed a complete protein, so you need to eat extra dairy products since you're vegetarian. So I continued to eat dairy products my first year vegetarian. And I moved to Tokyo, and I was doing work there in Tokyo, and I got really sick that winter. I got really like bad bronchitis, and I fainted on a movie set, and I had eczema all over my skin. I was bleeding, and it hurt to sit in the chair, and had some nerve issues. I was also eating sugar. So like being vegetarian was not about health. It was just, I was just eating what I normally ate, but it was vegetarian. So I was having a lot of sugar, and I severed the nerve that operates my left foot.
What? How did you do that?
Well, sitting cross-legged. So I was teaching English. If you sit cross-legged, there's a nerve that goes right there by the knee, and it controls the foot. So I had to lift my leg. So I was walking around Tokyo between teaching English like a penguin, lifting my legs up. And I just thought, I've just had it. There's got to be something else. There's got to be a way to be healthy. And I had I had picked up Herman Ihara's book, Acid and Alkaline, which is one of those early macrobiotic books. And it was more about balance and stuff, but it wasn't really a vegan book. But in the book, it had a chapter. It said, look, if you have any health issues whatsoever, why don't you just eat brown rice and vegetables for a week or two and see how you do, And when I saw that, I was like, oh yeah, I love brown rice. So that's what I did in this little kitchen I had in Tokyo. I made brown rice and steamed vegetables. And after about 12 days, I'd say I became a tree hugger because I was no longer allergic to the planet. I mean, I would go outside, I would get headaches, breathing outdoors was not comfortable. And everything just lifted that I had. And I've never had bronchitis or pneumonia since that time, 36 years ago. So yeah, it was just, I started going into the park. I was like hugging the trees, and I just kind of became like connected to the earth. I didn't feel separate from the earth anymore. And so that's how I became vegan.
What did you eat at first? Because this would have been 36 years. I'm bad at math, but this was about the 80s,
Yeah,
70s?
I was like 88, I believe, or 89. So
Because there wasn't a lot of the food available like there is now. There weren't really plant milks. There weren't there wasn't processed vegan food. So what did you eat? What were you raised eating? And what did you end up eating at first when you went vegan? And what do
yeah,
you?
well, when I grew up on, we used to go to the Chuck Wagon barbecue for breakfast, $1.99. It was biscuits with cream gravy, sausage, scrambled eggs, and then I'd go to class and I'd sleep through the first period. So I grew up on very standard American. I drank a gallon of milk a day. A gallon a day. If I didn't have milk before bed,
Was it whole milk?
yeah, Borden's vitamin D.
Wow.
If I didn't have the milk, my brother and I would scream for my mother to go, and she would go to the Piggly Wiggly to buy milk. I guess it's like a sugar addiction to the milk.
Yeah, lactose. Yeah.
Yeah. So so back in Tokyo, the good thing was there was this macrobiotic scene in Tokyo. So there were all these macrobiotic restaurants that were vegan plus fish. So I was able to get excuse me. It's like the one time I get a cough when I'm talking about.
This happens to everybody, just so you know. It's not just you. It's like, what do they call it? Murphy's Law.
Yeah, I'll drink some. So so brown rice steamed vegetables, azuki beans, miso soup, takuan pickles. Yeah.
You know, it's
And
interesting.
then
Yeah, when people, it's not, I wonder if it's so much the special food that you were eating or just the elimination of the toxic foods you were eating.
I think so. You know, there's this is crazy. So sorry.
It's okay. This happened to one of our guests recently from England. So please just have a sip
Yeah.
of water, compose yourself.
Yeah, I mean, so since that time, I'm quite an open person to trying new versions of the vegan diet. So I've tried just about every version of it. And well, not every, there's thousands. But I always go back to like McDougall allergy elimination or something really simple. And what I realized kind of in my 40s was a lot of what it is you're leaving out the fats. So
Mm,
you're leaving out all the nuts, the seeds, the avocado, and then the body starts to heal, right? Because it's like we're oxygenated, we get lots of energy in our cells. So yeah, I think it is the elimination thing. So I think it could be done. I mean, you know, like the people do just potatoes and they get a result, or they do brown rice, or
yeah, or the
they do.
Kempner diet, just kept Dr. Walter Kempner, just white rice.
Yeah, yeah. And you know, I do great with white rice.
Me
I think
too.
white rice is,
It,
yeah.
it's so
It's
gentle.
nice because it's a little lighter. You know, just tastes. I love basmati rice.
Yeah. You didn't stay macrobiotic, did you, for a long time?
I did, and I still kind of eat macrobiotic, but I do have like nightshade sometimes. So I'm not hardcore macro, but I pretty much do well on the kind of macrobiotic version of a vegan diet, but it'd be the oil-free one.
Yeah.
And yeah, like I like that Casa de Luz restaurant in Austin. That have you been to Casa de Luz?
I
And
have tried to get the owner on my show and he was kind of flaked, but I hear it's a great restaurant.
yeah, it's amazing. And they've been doing oil-free for like 25 years. I don't know, because that's not typical in macrobiotic. The older macrobiotic, they used a lot of oil in their cookbooks.
Yeah, I don't know why they think it's such a holy grail of food. I met the grandson of Kushi.
Mhm.
We both were at a conference in Universal City, California. I was making the desserts for PCRM, and he was one of the speakers. And I said, "Is there anything that you feel that is necessary in oil that we can't get from the whole food from which he came?" And he really couldn't give me an answer. So I really love to know their thinking of why they think it's so beneficial.
Yeah, I don't think they really have really brought in the calorie thing and the percent. They don't, you know, I've spoken to many of them about it, that there's something magical when you get into the 10 to 20% fat calories, your body heals. And most people eating a vegan diet are eating 30 to 60% calories because they're including oil. And that's great if you're healthy and you're running like that. But if you have any issues, if you just adjust it a little bit down, and it's not like you're fat deficient, you're still eating, you know, fat. So,
Yeah. So tell me about this comedian thing. Yeah, I'm not, I wouldn't say I'm a
yeah.
comedian necessarily, but I do comedy as much as I can, both stand up and improv being my favorite. So are you performing? Do you tell us about when you got into comedy?
Yeah, I got into comedy kind of because I studied theater in college, and it's a lot of work to be in a play, right? You can't really work. It's a lot of commitment. But stand-up comedy, you can do it twice a year and it's 5 minutes, and it's like a great outlet. So I have a relationship with stand-up comedy. I just go back and forth to it when I'm in the mood. And I did the Edinburgh Fringe twice
And
in the
if people
last
aren't familiar, explain what the Edinburgh Fringe is.
In Edinburgh, Scotland in August. It's the largest theater festival in the world. There's 3,500 shows. And
Over what period of time? That's incredible.
it's like August 4th to August 28th. And you do like 25 shows in a row. And, you know, the first year I did it, and my friend was like, you know, take Monday and Tuesday off, go down to London, you know, don't do, I was like, no, if I'm gonna do it, I'm gonna do it every night. But wow, you need that one night a week off, you know. So the second year I took Monday nights off, but it's cool because you get to do an intensive, you know, like 25 days straight or 30 days where you do shows every day. And you do an hour-long show, and you propose something, you try to get a producer. And it's great because you get in a rhythm, you know. It's like, well, you're always performing because you're on YouTube, but you know, when you have to perform, you got to do everything right. You know, you got to have your nap. You got to get on whatever you do for it. For me, it's a rebounder. You know, I would rebound before I would perform and do the meditation and the qigong and the yoga. And it's kind of like a whole schedule. So I love that intensiveness of it.
Did you ever study it, or you just were naturally gifted? Because I don't think people understand sometimes, like I'm always in a class. Like I don't just think I'm that great that I can just do it. Like I'm always trying to learn and better myself in those
Yeah.
fields.
Oh no, I love to take stand-up comedy classes. I've taken all of them. I love Steven Rosenfeld in New York City. I did his whole 1-year program. I did the very first comedy class I took was with Judy Carter back in.
Oh my gosh, she was my first teacher in the year 2000. That's when I started, when I was 40.
Gosh, how weird would that be if we were in the same class?
I think I would have remembered you because because you were already vegan then. My husband took it too. And
Yeah.
then what happened is she stopped doing it. And then a different teacher, I don't know if you know, Carrie Otis took over, and he's the one I still study with.
Okay. Okay. No, I don't know, but I remember, you know, I was new at it, and so I was really sensitive to criticism. And I had this joke that was like, you know, all my life I've wanted to be a motivational speaker, but I just haven't been able to get motivated about it.
Very good.
And it was a great setup. And then she had me do like, yeah, you know, what about Tony Robbins? Like, does he bark at his wife? And is there a school for, you know, motivation? So she gave me this whole thing, but then when I did the performance, I was a little bit off. And she said, you know, you weren't quite there, da, da, da. She criticized me. I didn't do stand-up comedy for 6 years.
That is so funny. I had an improv teacher be really mean to me, and I walked away for a year. I don't know why teachers have to. I don't think of Judy as mean, but you know, they say, well, if you can't take the criticism, you shouldn't be performing in public, you know.
Yeah, I mean, that the reality is most of us are children and we can't take it. You know, we're scared of it. We need it in little compassionate, you know. She's probably true of the best, but she's actually a really skilled teacher though, and she's
She's
got.
really good. And have you read her book, The Comedy Bible?
I have read it. Yeah, it's
Really,
really good.
really good. Are you performing anywhere now? Or I mean, I went to your YouTube channel and I
Yeah,
saw you have, let's see, you have something called Funny Wordplay Jokes with Stand-Up Comedian Larry Tadlock, 50 Ways to Leave Your Liver. But then you have another presentation called How to Start a Whole Food Plant-Based Diet for Beginners.
yeah, yeah. So I really need to do more YouTube. I need to put just, you know, more streaming and just talking about topics. You know, I travel almost full time. I've been living as a digital nomad, and I'm always somewhere cool.
What does that mean, a digital nomad?
So I manage my work on a computer. So I'm able to live anywhere I want. So I have an apartment in Athens, Greece that I bought, and that's my home base. And I have a visa for there to stay. And I'll go for like 2, 3 months to Greece, and then I'll go to, like, I spent the summer in London, and then I'll go to Lisbon, and then, you know, like now I'm in New York for 2, 3 months, and I'll go to California for a month or two. And I just live like that. I just rent different places, and I really like to travel and explore. And
So do you work? Like, do you have like a job?
yeah, I manage real estate, and in California and Hawaii. So I have a very small real estate company, but I'm basically like the bookkeeper at this point, so I don't really have to be there. I just kind of manage, you know, different aspects of it online. And sometimes I go to California and Hawaii. I spend some time on the business and make sure it's running. And I've been doing it a long time. I'm getting a bit tired of it now.
Yeah, that would be that to me, like I'm such a homebody. Like even if I was really wealthy and could have multiple houses, it's like I mean, this is a perfect job for me since COVID because I love being at home. So I would imagine your lifestyle doesn't really allow you to have pets.
No, no, my Shar Pei, I had a beautiful chocolate brown Shar Pei that died in 2011. And I almost got another one, but that was the year that I went to Greece for a month, and that kind of changed everything for me. I started going back, and yeah, it's really hard because you miss your pet. You want
Hmm.
to, I'd go
So
for 2 weeks.
what do you eat when you're in Greece?
That's a great question. Well, first of all, it's the best food on the planet. The food is so fresh. You can cut a carrot or a zucchini with a fork, raw. It's different. I'm really big on the wild greens, which are called horta. So every island has its own greens, and they tend to be dandelion, amaranth, things like that, but they don't taste like what we have. They're so good. And in any restaurant in Greece, there's a grandmother in the back trimming these wild greens, and she had foraged them in the mountain earlier that day. So if I go to a restaurant, I would order a big bowl of wild greens. And I mean, it's like a Chef AJ, it's like 2 pounds of greens because they boil them down, right? And you can get that in any restaurant in Greece. The trick is you have to find the ones that are willing to not do the oil for you, which they will steam it. They'll leave, if you just say, I want the oil on the side, they do that. And then grilled vegetables, baked. Oh, the sweet potatoes are so good. I bake a lot of sweet potatoes. They have a bean called fava bean, which is more of a yellow split pea. That's the best thing ever. They cook it up with a lot of onion. It really has a nutty, nice flavor, especially the one from Santorini. Um, I will have some olives if they're not soaked in, olive oil. So sometimes they're in vinegar, sometimes they're sun dried. Um, the food is really fantastic. Um,
Do you cook your own meals ever?
oh, all the time. Almost totally. I will cook in the apartment and then I will go out for a restaurant for a special occasion or maybe to get 1 or 2 dishes and bring back to add. So, you know, um, I do a lot of cooking at home. I have to eat pretty pretty simple food. I'm gluten free. I don't do well with a lot of spices. So, like I said in the beginning, I have a kind of autoimmune gut issue. So I have to eat pretty strictly. Like I often go back to something very simple, like just rice and sweet potato and steamed greens. Like I'll do that for 5 days.
So many people think that's how I prefer to eat, not because I have to, but a lot of people think that's just so boring and unsustainable. But I think if you eat that way, you just prefer it.
Yeah, you do. You do. It actually, I prefer my food at home, and I actually don't need a lot of sauces. I mean, to me, for like a miso tahini sauce would be like heaven. Like that would be so rich. And by the way, my first 20 years vegan, I ate so much tahini and nuts and seeds and all that, and I still eat a little bit, but I really like to keep it very low, and I'll do 2 or 3 days without, then I'll have a little bit, and I feel like my energy's a lot better, my digestion's better, my mind's clearer. So
Well, how do
yeah,
you have like for example, I don't know if you use an instant pot or an air fryer, but if you're in so many locations, do you have to buy multiple
I
things?
have the pots all over the world, Chef AJ. I
Nice.
literally I
That would
use,
be a great name for a cookbook, Instant Pots all over the world.
I like that. Yeah. You know, I started to just, if I'm in a place for like 6 weeks to 2 months, I'll just buy one now. I don't travel with it as much. I'll buy one. I used to travel back in the macrobiotic days with a stainless steel pressure cooker in my suitcase, a small one, which actually works quite well for making beans and grains. But these days, I just tend to buy a new one and then I'll give it away or give it to whatever the host is or something because they're not very expensive, 50, $60. And
That's
sometimes I do without, it's nice to lighten up the cooking, to do just boiled rice and do lighter cooking styles. So, like in the summer, I don't really need an Instapot in the summer when it's really hot. I'm doing more salads and kind of fresher kind of things.
so tell us what you eat in a day.
Okay. Well, I love Neil Bernard's idea of having a little bit of soy for breakfast. And I do very well with soy, like a little bit of tofu or tempeh. So I usually have that first, and I might reheat some sweet potatoes, and then I try to have some greens in the morning. And thanks to you for that. I mean, you've taught people that, and I really picked that up. That if you have some greens in the morning, you're a lot more likely to eat enough for the day because you're going to crave it at lunch, you'll crave it at dinner. If you don't, you'll go into lunch and you'll just have a bowl of brown rice and beans, and then you'll have like no greens by 3 o'clock. And you can run a little acidic that way. So I like to have a little greens. And then I always have a grain with usually a soft grain, usually like leftover brown rice cooked with a little extra water and some miso. Sometimes millet, I'm a big millet person, and sometimes quinoa. So just like a bowl of grain. I'm a little obsessed with pacha buckwheat sourdough bread right now.
Oh my God. So wait, you're okay. So you're not in Greece right now, but yeah,
No, I'm in New York City.
so
Yeah.
I mean, I wish they would make a salt-free version, but I will make an exception for that because have you had all four of their flavors? The creator has been on the show.
Oh, have it. I know I've had only the cheesy one and
Yeah,
the
that's my favorite. That's my favorite
yeah,
of the four.
yeah, it's really good. And I like to steam it, a little bit because I think a little steamed bread just for a minute, it kind of makes it like fresh out of the oven and it's less like drying to the throat and stuff. So I like to steam it, but sometimes I toast it. It's
I
really
like
good.
I like it toasted. We actually bought a toaster. I never had a toaster. So yeah, I
Yeah.
really love what, I don't know if you ever had weight problems or food addiction problems, but I love that you gave a shout out to vegetables for breakfast because my husband, who's been thin his whole life, can't gain weight if no matter what you do to him, but he has been eating greens for breakfast every day since I started, which was January 2nd, 2012. And for breakfast, we just mean as part of your first meal. But like people
Sure.
misunderstood my concept vegetables for breakfast to mean that's all you eat. No, no, no. You just start because you're right, you can't play catch up because once you eat something that's more like delicious or stimulating or hyper palatable of a higher caloric density, you don't go and eat your rice and beans and then say, oh, now I'm going to eat some steam. It just, you have to eat the lower caloric. You don't have to, but you're right. You don't get as much in or enough in if you don't start with them. And I just had one of my favorite guests, Broccoli Mom. I don't know if you know who she is on, and she lost 60 pounds following the principles of caloric density. And I mean, how else are you going to eat vegetables? You don't eat them for dessert.
Yeah, you don't. Yeah, and if you crave what you had kind of from the last meal, so if I mean, people if they have steel cut oats, which are great, and a little tofu, well, then lunch comes around and they want pasta, or they want more rice and beans. They're not really craving the greens, but with your thing, getting the 2 pound, I like to cook 2 pounds in the morning. I do a lot better with cooked vegetables in general. I do have some raw, but I have to be careful with the raw. So I like to just cook 2 pounds and then if you eat like half of it at breakfast, which I'll easily do, I want more for lunch. And then guess what? It's dinner time. I want more vegetables. So I end up with 3 pounds because you want more. So for me, it's not about weight. I never really had a weight issue. If anything, I was too skinny. In fact, when I was in Tokyo, when I was first macrobiotic and vegan, I got rid of all my health problems, but I got very, very skinny. I was eating a lot of salt, which makes you very contractive, and it just and I think people thought I had AIDS because it wasn't really common for men to be skinny in the late 80s. I don't think the six-pack had even been invented. People were a little chubbier. And I spoke to my dad about it. I was frustrated because I couldn't gain weight for a long time. And yeah, he said, when you're 50, no one's going to complain about you being too skinny, especially your doctor. And it's so true. Now it's like I'm 56 and I'm probably a little thinner, but I can gain weight if I, lift weights and things like that. So.
Did anybody in your family question, because you said you were 20, so you probably weren't living at home, right?
No, I wasn't. No.
So it wasn't like your mom said you couldn't do it, but did anybody in your family get inspired or friends to change their diet when you changed yours?
Well, initially they all thought I was crazy. I mean, initially it was just so unusual, especially to come back to Texas. In Japan, there's a little more of a vegetarian tradition and it was easier there. California, it's California. But in Texas, it's like, they just thought it was kind of nuts, but they knew I was an open person, I'm kind of an explorer. They're just kind of used to me. But then later in my life, yes, I have had so many friends that, they see what I'm eating and how I'm doing on my Instagram or whatever. And, you can't convince anyone to do it. You can't convince anyone to eat vegan, much less healthy vegan. But when they have a serious health issue, like they, if they get desperate, they'll do it. And that's when they reach out. And I've had so many people just change their life from eating healthy vegan food. One of my best friends, my best friend Chris, had his face blew up with like a rash. And it was like 6 weeks, they couldn't figure out what was wrong with him. And, he went to the dermatologist. Well, my first thing doing that brown rice cleanse when I was 21 was I had psoriasis all over my body. So it's kind of skin is kind of my thing. And now I have gorgeous skin. So I said, look, Chris, this is going to be tough, but you're going to have to eat what I'm going to give you to do is going to be really hard, but it'll work. And it worked in like 6 or 7 days. And I basically told him to do the McDougall allergy elimination protocol. And that's one of the most powerful tools on the planet.
Yep, absolutely. So tell me I'm vegan, you're vegan, but I'm kind of more interested in your comedy career.
Yeah, sure.
Because this is what I don't know if the audience is interested in. I don't know if that's the thing about like if you were a magician, I could say, show me a trick right now. But it's like with comedy, you can't just like be funny. Like, I mean, you can, but people don't realize that stand-up isn't just joke telling. It really isn't joke telling. It's a structure of its own. But I'm curious, some of the various places you've performed, when's the last time you've performed and when's the next time you're performing?
Well, I did, the last time I performed was the Comedy Chateau in North Hollywood. And then prior to that, it was all in New York out here at like Gotham Comedy Club. And long time ago, I did the Improv and the Comedy Store and some of that. I never got to the level where I was like a regular at the Comedy Cellar or the Comedy Store because I always approached this as kind of a hot. I mean, I approach it seriously, but I would leave it for like a year and then come back to it. So I would leave it, then take a class and then do some more. And I've been doing that a long time now.
I don't know how people, you know, I mean, you can dabble in it, but to get really good, you got to be like Jerry Seinfeld. He like apparently like writes every single day, works on his craft every single day.
Yeah, you have to get in a momentum with performing. Even Chris Rock says that. He's like, you know, if I'm getting ready to go on tour, if I miss a couple nights of the week, you know, going to just do a 10-minute set, he's like, I've lost my
Momentum.
rhythm.
Yeah.
Yeah, his momentum. So
It's like exercise, you know?
yeah, yeah.
Speaking
You're
of which, what do you do for exercise?
I go to the gym and I do some weight training. I get on the Vibe plate. I love Vibe plate. I do a little bit of zone 2 cardio.
I am not sure what a biplate is.
It's basically you stand on it and it basically shakes you.
Okay, yeah, I think of Dr. Furman has mentioned that.
Yeah, and it's amazing. It builds bone density and it's like doing 20 minutes of cardio in 2 minutes. And it's my gym has a $15,000 one. Nobody even gets on it. So I get on it for like 5 minutes to kind of warm up. Um, that's kind of the rebounder aspect. So it's like rebounding. I love rebounding. So when I'm in my apartment in Greece, I have a rebounder. And I also have one in storage in San Diego. So when I go to San Diego or Los Angeles, I get my rebounder out. And then besides that, long history doing yoga, qigong, tai chi. I love all of those Feldenkrais, mind body kind of stuff. I've done a lot of that. I've got a yoga mat, you know, right next to me. So, but I've found, you know, at age 56, I mean, I'm not old or anything, but I can get very like meditative, for lack of a better word. And if I do a lot of yoga or qigong, that's kind of what I want to do. And whereas weights, you know, you're kind of out in the world, you know, I just feel good when I do weights. So that's kind of what I'm focusing on right now.
Like, are in all the different countries and cities you live in, are most of your friends vegan? Or how do you even maintain friendships when you're always moving around?
I have a few really close friends in different places. And yeah, that is more and more, you know, eventually I will not travel as much. In fact, the last 4 years, I started going to Europe only once a year, but I would stay for 4 to 6 months rather than going like twice. And that, you know, helps with the carbon footprint for the flights.
Do you go home to see your family? Like, where does your family live? In Texas
They're,
still?
they're all in Dallas. Yeah, Dallas and Lubbock.
So you go
Yeah,
home, do you go home for the holidays?
I didn't this year because I just didn't want to fly with all the, I don't want to fly when there's so many people. So, but I always stop there when I'm on the way from the West Coast back to Europe. So I go basically Hawaii, California, stop in New York, stop in London, and I go to Greece. I kind of do the same round trip.
Nice.
So
You
when
must have a lot of, you must have a lot of frequent flyer miles.
I've got that dialed down. Yeah, I've got a lot of perks. Yeah, I got. I usually get a free business class trip back. I always buy one-way tickets because I never know how long I'm going to go.
Oh,
But and I get good deals. I mean, that sounds pretentious, but I get good deals on one-way tickets. So like in February, I'm going to go to San Diego for the whole month, maybe 6 weeks. So I'll go to Texas on the way, see family, do the holiday thing, and then I'll be out in the sun. I need some sun, Chef AJ. I really.
don't look at me. I'm not in Southern California anymore. I left the beautiful sunshine behind. Hey, tell me a little bit about that video you made that's called, let's see, I pulled it up. The How to Start a Whole Food Plant-Based Diet for Beginner, the First Steps. Because a lot of times you know, you were mentioning at the beginning of the show, people talking in the chat, you know, people will say, well, I don't know where to begin. You know, do I stop dairy? You know, what do I do first? People, a lot of times they think it's sugar. And while I don't think sugar is a health food, that wouldn't be my first step with somebody. Mine would
Yeah.
probably be dairy, you know?
Yeah, well, I don't remember what's specifically in that video, but this is what I do. Every night before I go to bed, I see what grain or bean do I want for the next day if I haven't made any, and I soak them overnight. So there I have a habit when I wake up, I already know what I'm going to cook. So I do that every night. I soak my grain or bean, and then they're, maybe more digestible, get some of the acids out. So I do that, and I yeah, but I feel like, sometimes I scare people because my diet is so simple, but I think going strict is easier than going gourmet. Like most people, they struggle because they're like, oh, I'm really used to eating in nice restaurants and I'm used to this flavor. And I kind of think use your mental power to get past that and just eat peasant food for a month. It's not going to kill you, and then see how you feel. And then you add the flavor, you find the recipes. So I just say make rice, beans, or quinoa, sweet potato, and a lot of vegetables. And just eat that and get your, like Esselstyn says, that fat switch in the brain. If you go 21 days without the fats, you no longer crave fats.
Yeah, to down regulate the fat receptor. But I've seen people take a little longer than that. Some people, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you think a couple months or?
The longest, the most stubborn client I had was 4 months, but that is not, but I mean, she was basically eating a McDonald's diet. But for most people, like you say, I think a few weeks of compliant eating and then they don't miss it as much.
Yeah, it's like it just turns. And I discovered this in my mid 40s. I was coaching a friend with like high cholesterol and stuff. And I was saying, why don't you just leave off the nuts and seeds? I was like, I'll do it with you, to support you. And like I said, I'm big on all the tahini sauce. I love all that. That's like the vegan cream. But I did that with him. And like after about 15 days, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm doing sit-ups and it feels good. Like ab crunches. Because usually all my life I would do sit-ups. I was like, God, I hate this. It's like hurting. So my stomach flattened out with no overt fats. And then I started working out. I started lifting weights and it just gave me so much energy. So I think that's a really cool tool that is easy to miss. It's very easy to miss that in the whole food plant-based world, that there's a little magic tool. Leave off all the fats until you get healthy. All the doctors say that, the whole food plant-based doctors, except maybe Furman, but you would miss it if you weren't, so that was quite eye-opening for me.
You mentioned tahini. I remember I was at the Plantrition conference and the food was amazing at the Marriott and I became friendly with the chefs and I'm like, share the recipes with me. And everything had like a half a cup or a cup of tahini or a cup of cashew cream. And of course it was delicious, and I wasn't used to eating that much fat. And it was like, wow. I mean, it's really good, but that's what I think people sometimes do is when they go on a plant-based diet, they do go on, same thing with, I've noticed with the raw diet, they go on a higher fat version at first,
Yeah, I tried that. I tried the raw food diet with all the nuts and seeds and stuff. That wiped me out.
I did not feel well on it,
No,
but I never tried the low fat raw diet, but I don't know if I could do that because I don't know if I could eat like 10 pounds of food a day. I'm already eating 5.
I tried it many times, the 80-10-10. And, when I was in Hawaii, I was just like, I want to do something fun. And it kind of works, but you get, at least for me, I got too skinny doing that. And I don't think I do really that well with fruit. I think I have a little bit of a fructose issue. So I think I'm more on the cook side. But the crazy thing is when you do that, a lot of fruit, you kind of, you get disorganized because you're spacey. So I was like, why are there banana peels in my car? You know, it's just like eating bananas and throwing them.
Have you ever done a comedy set on veganism? I've done quite a few because you're in comedy, you can't really make fun of other people, but you can certainly make fun of your own.
Yeah, I have tried to do it. Well, my last Fringe had a lot of that, and you know, I would do like I'm grateful to McDonald's because 1/5 of my body is from there, and you talk about how much I ate McDonald's, and but it's funny because oh no, here's one. I would go. So as a vegan, here's my diet. I eat rice and beans and vegetables and nuts and seeds and McDonald's. And you know, it's a comedy teacher helped me write that. And it's funny, but if there's vegans in the audience, they're like, oh. And I was like, okay, no, it's a joke, people. Yeah. Yeah.
Nice. Do you have any social media presence? If people want to like connect with you, how would they do that? Like,
Yeah, the best way would be probably my Instagram is Life by Tadlock. And I mean, you could follow my YouTube. Maybe one of these days I'll post something. It's the same name, Life by Tadlock. But my Instagram has a lot of travel photos and a lot of food, you know, food photos and like the other day I posted, I ate a giant 1,000-calorie breakfast because I'd worked out and I was hungry and it had 50 grams of protein in it. And I put the whole thing in Chronometer and I printed out the analysis of it and you know, just kind of talk. So there's things like that on my Instagram is probably the best way.
nice. What do you do for fun?
I'm really love theater. That's why I'm out in New York. I love to go to London and New York and see musicals.
What was your favorite musical? Did you see Waitress by any chance?
I loved Waitress.
Did you
Which
know that
one
they
did you?
filmed it? Did you know that they actually filmed one of the versions of the Broadway shows and made it a movie? And the movie was a spectacular, which is kind of funny because they made a movie of a play of a movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that one had actually Sarah Bareilles that wrote it right in it.
Yeah, she
As
was amazing. Yeah.
yeah, but I when Jessie Mueller opened that show on Broadway, so she was Carole King in Beautiful, and then she did The Waitress, and I just loved her performance in that. Yeah, it's one of my favorite shows. I love Spring Awakening. Um, the current shows, I mean, Funny Girl closed with Leah Michele, but that was probably the best thing I have ever seen. I just saw Merrily We Roll Along that has Daniel Radcliffe in it, and that's really good. Um, Sweeney Todd with Josh Groban is really good right now.
Ooh.
Uh, MJ is so good. MJ the musical, if you want to see the progression of the dance. So Michael Jackson, the dancer. You can watch the YouTube. I think the song, I think it's Beat It, but there's one big number where they go through all the people that he studied in dance to become Michael Jackson. And that's a fantastic musical.
Yeah.
Worth every penny. It's gonna
Did you
cost a lot.
did you happen to see Ain't Too Proud?
Yeah, I did. I can't remember much about it.
I saw it here in Sacramento, and it's just I love theater too. Who's your favorite comedian? And who's your favorite vegan comedian? Because there are some comedians that are vegan.
Oh, are they?
Yep.
I love Amy Schumer. I think she's
He's hilarious.
very, I don't know if she's vegan. I don't think she is, but I love exuberance in performing, like people that they're just happy to share it. You know, they're just happy to be sharing. And I think she really does that. And I think she really has a hold of her funny bone. I think she's really got it. I love Chris Rock. we mentioned him earlier.
I saw him in person in April, right before I moved to Northern California. He's great.
Yeah. Yeah, I saw a really interesting presentation in London on comedy and poetry and history, and how it's actually they're hypnotizing the audience with a rhythm, and I think Chris Rock can really watch his rhythm, and Jerry Seinfeld as well. So it's a musical thing. And they used to do back, in the Middle Ages, they would do political speeches and they would use rhythm because it gets people in it, which is great for stand-up comedy, but it's really bad if you're watching the evening news because they're also using a rhythm, right? Like you watch the evenings, you're like, the world, it's so terrible. You're all, riled up. So
That's
that's
funny. Well, thanks for being vegan and for going vegan at such a young age. You think anybody went vegan because of you?
Oh yeah, many people. Yeah, many friends. Yeah. And it's been really fun. It's a great way to live. It's just all we do is eat good food and travel and have fun. I mean, it's like you just feel so happy. And it doesn't mean you're never going to get depressed, but it's just it's a happy life with a lot of celebration. So yeah.
Do you only do stand-up or have you ever done improv comedy?
Yeah, I did a lot of the Groundlings for years. I went
You're
through their whole
kidding. Me too.
program.
I still study with them. I mean, they're still online and we actually perform online.
Oh yeah, yeah. Drew Droege is a friend of mine.
He's one of the teachers there. I've never had him. I have Guy Stevenson. I don't know if you know who that is. And Patrick Bristow.
No, but I have Ariane Price was my first Groundlings teacher. And, I had my very first basic groundling class, and there were 15 of us. We are all best friends. Like, we have stayed in touch. That was around 2008. We are like, we bonded. It's like a little fraternity. Like, they're messaging. We have an Instagram chain. We see each other once a year. And yeah, I really love the Groundling style of comedy because
Yeah.
it's relationship based.
Yeah, and character driven more than, yeah.
Yeah, character driven.
But
So yeah, that's fun to
we have a
do.
lot in common. If you ever come to Northern California, come to one of the meetups. I'll give you 5 minutes at the mic.
Yeah, definitely. I would love that.
All
Yeah.
right. Well, thank you so much, Larry. It was a lot of fun getting to know you. Thanks for your patience and waiting to get on the show.
Thank you. Yeah, it's a pleasure to meet you. Thanks for having
Thank
me. Keep
you.
up the good
And
work.
thanks all of you for watching another episode of Chef AJ Live. Please come back tomorrow for another great show.